Everything else that you will ever do in this module is really going to depend on how cleanly, accurately, and intentionally you're going to build what we're building now. I also do not want you to think of this as administrative work or clerical work, because that's not what this is. This is target acquisitions. This is the core truth that very few people understand. And here was also an error that I made, and I think everyone makes. They think that the deal is the land. And I want you to know that it's not. The deal is the owner. Land is not going to sell itself, right? Owners make decisions. Amateurs just seem to spray letters everywhere, and then they complain about response rates. I actually just had a kind of a friend of a friend, almost like family, and she sometimes struggles. And so I gave her this free advice because she owns land, which is a problem because it was free advice. And then she was complaining about the response rates. I've known this gal for a while, so I said, look, come on, let's think like an operator. I want you to build a list with surgical intent. And so are you. We're going to do this with a quiet dominance about this. So let me say this again. Let me reword it again a little differently with all of you. I didn't want to go off on a tangent with that friend that called. Operators build lists with surgical intent. And when you do that, you're going to quietly dominate. Because we do not chase motivation. I'm teaching you how to surface it. I also want to talk to you about the 3 owner categories that really matter, because when you pull data, you're going to see patterns. And your job is to prioritize owners who statistically behave differently. Let me give you those 3 categories that I care about the most. Number 1, absentee owners. These are owners who do not live near the property. Maybe they inherited it, or maybe they moved away. And then what happens is that then they forgot about it. And then it's been my experience that distance creates detachment. And guess what, guys? This is going to work to your advantage, because that detachment creates flexibility. I like this is because they've already experienced that upside, and now they're holding something that doesn't cash flow. Maybe it still creates paperwork for them. Maybe it still costs them taxes. I do know this, I knew it for me, it occupied mental space. So it's been my experience that time is going to erode that attachment. And time is going to be your ally. That way your confidence stays intact. The scale we can come later. The important is that the discipline comes first. I also think that we need to have a little bit of a mental shift, because you do need to make this. When you build this list, you are not hoping that someone responds. You are assembling a ledger of probability, because you already know that most aren't going to sell. You also know that some will respond, a few will maybe convert, yet a very small number will produce an outside result. And I don't say that to discourage you. That's just the business. Operators like us who do this in a professional way understand that we don't need everyone to say yes. We only need enough of the right people. That signal has now landed. And once that signal now lands, then I've noticed that then that market responds. That's when I think most people lose control. And I think it's because the phone starts ringing. Or maybe it's because emails begin coming in. Or maybe it's because forms get submitted, and then suddenly, instead of running a system, you now start reacting with noise. I remember I made that error myself. Okay. So for that reason is why I would like module 4 and why it exists, because it exists for one reason, to make sure that every inbound interaction is going to work for you, not against you. This is also not about being friendly. I've also met people that they think it's about building rapport, and it's not. It's about capturing intelligence efficiently while protecting your time, your energy, and your focus. I also want you to think about the fact that you're no longer marketing. You're now running intake. And intake is where amateurs bleed time. But operators like us are going to extract leverage. And another mistake I made is not to know when to end the conversation. So I'm going to teach you how to end the conversations cleanly, and then let's move into a decision pipeline. Let's also keep this in mind, that your job is no longer to talk, it's to collect the signal. I want to move on to the fourth one. Handwritten letters returned by mail. Yes, it still happens, and when it does, the sellers take it seriously. You should handle all four. Let me handle what those, you have 3 ways to handle those calls. Each has trade-offs. I want you to choose like a syndicate strategist and not a hobbyist. Let me move on to C, a call center. That is the domination tier. Your number moves to a trained operator who's going to gather the intel just the way you want it. So the pros are every call gets answered. There's zero phone tag. There's full scalability, and you can stay focused on the deals. The cons are there is a monthly cost, and it can range from 500 to I've seen some as high as 1,000 a month. Less real-time intuition, rare panic sellers, and many do not fully surface. That is the con. But again, this is how serious operators scale. Time converts into capital. Let's remember that. Let me move on to the next. Never use your personal cell. Do not use your personal phone, ever. Use maybe some Google Voice or call forwarding or something that mentions business hours. You also want a controlled voice script. This will allow you to run hybrid deals. Sometimes you answer, sometimes the system captures. You want it clean, you want it to be controlled and visible. Let me move on to the next one, the Intel script. No matter who answers the call, whether it's a voicemail or call center, the script does not change. This is not a conversation. It is an intake protocol. These people are not customers. The raw deal flow, and 90 to 95% of them are not going to sell. So your job is not to convince. Your job is to filter efficiently. So your time is going to go to the 5% that matter. This module is going to protect your time. I'm teaching this to you to preserve your focus, and I want you to turn that chaos into structure. It took me years to figure this out. I'm giving you advice here that is going to save you time. Let's now talk on your assignment. I want you to practice the script. Role play it with a partner. Test the voicemail. Test the call routing. Test your website form, because once the email lands, the underground starts getting signals, and operators always capture the signal.